Begin. Kumlen and Ablat Gemara. We are up to today. Rosh Hashana Daf Lamed Beis Amud Aleph. Gemara says now we're discussing the Musaf, the davening. Say the brachas. What's the order of the brachas? Omer, you say Avos Gurus B'Kedusha Hashem. This is the normal Shemoneh Esrei that we daven every single day. The first three brachas, and then after Kaddish. Now, Koilel Malchus Imohen. Where do we talk about Malechal Oil Kubach Vaydecha? Where do we talk about Malchus and Aleinu Shabech and all that? That belongs there in the bracha of After Kaddish. Malchus should be brought forward, as we'll soon see. We don't do it that way today. And the Eino Kaddish. And we don't blow shofar yet. Then Kedushas Hayom. Then we say, we say after the Chatana, we say Kedushas Hayom. And there v'tekeya. Even though there's no Malchus there we blow the shofar. Then the next bracha is the Chronis, and v'tekeya we blow shofar. We learned before you blow shofar by Malchus, the Chronis, and shofars. And then the third bracha is shofars, v'tekeya blow. And then we conclude Shemoneh Avoda. Say and then the normal ending of Shemoneh Esrei with three brachas. So basically, the first three is the same as the usual, the last three, and then we have the middle three. So there's nine brachas in total by Musaf. But according to Rabbi Yechanu's opinion, that is only that Malchus should be brought forward to the first part of Atar Kodesh rather than in the Malchus part. We'll soon see more why. Okay, says the Gemara further, that's opinion one. However, Amr says, if you're not going to blow them, then why mention that at all? Because we know you have to blow three brackets, and one is with Malchus, one is with Chrein, one is Shefes. Ella, this is what you do, and this is we follow Rabbi Akiva. You say Avos Ugvudas Ugdushas Hashem. You say after Kaddish, and then the Koil Malchus in Kedushas Hayom. But when Malchus, which starts from Aleinu Shabech, that goes into Kedushas Hayom, and which is the way we do today. V'tekeya blows, Chronis v'tekeya, and Shofar v'tekeya. Then you conclude Shemoneh Avoda Hoda Ubichas Kainim. So these are the two of you. Tomorrow I'll explain. If you're not going to blow, why mention it? Lamo Maski, what do you mean why mention it? Rachmana Amad Itke. The Torah says you should mention it. Now, this is a problem. What do you mean the Torah? Where in the world does the Torah say you have to mention all this whole davening is only Midurabban? But because it's like an asmachta, we brought psukim before, therefore it's like the Torah mentioned it. We'll see later which psukim we're talking about. So when it says achman, it doesn't mean literally mehatayra, it means it's based on the Torah. Elalama esse, why do we say 10 brachas? Lema teisha, why do we say 9 brachas? The hoyel ishtana. And so we say here that since already we say that it's different than the other ones. It's you, Rabbi Yechanuah, say that you blow shofar only by Zichrein and Shofars. You don't blow shofar by Malchus, so we should make some Malchus is treated differently because you brought Malchus forward to Atar Kodesh. So you should also make it different that the number of psukim, we'll soon see in the Gemara that we have 10 psukim supporting each theme. For this one, you should only have 9 psukim, that it should be different than the other ones, because you don't blow shofar. Show that is different as well in the number of psukim. That was the conversation they had. Now the Gemara continues. How do you know that b'chal we start from the Avos? And it says, "Havu Hashem b'nei Elim," the sons of the strong ones, which refers obviously to the Avos. That's how you start. How do you know that you mentioned Gurus? It says, "Havu Hashem covered v'ois." It says, "Give to the Eibush covered v'ois." Give to Eibush the strength. So therefore, and ois. Covered honor and strength. So therefore, we know that you also have to mention the Avos. The Eibish's Gvurus. And then we continue. And Menai Kedusha. How do you know that you have to then say Kedusha? Shenema, because it says in the pasuk, Hobu, it says Hashem Kavod Shemo Yishtach Hashem B'Hadas Kodesh. You bow down to Eibishter with Hadas Kodesh and everything else. So therefore, we know that you have to give this Kodesh here. How do you know that you also have to say Malchus Achronim Shefus? So we have a pasuk that it alludes to all three. And when the Gemara said before Achmana, it meant this pasuk. What's the story here? It says in the pasuk, it says. Rabbi Lezer says it says in the pasuk that tell the Eden on the 7th month, the first day of the month, it should be Yilachem Shabbosan, which normally means the day of rest. Zichron, remembering through a blowing shofar. Mikra Kodesh, should call over there, summon or bring forward Kodesh Kedusha. So we're going to dash on each word something else. Shabbosan, Shabbosan, that is the fact that today is Kodesh, Kedusha. And Zichron Elu Zichronis, Zichron, that's Zichronis, because that's Zichron. Trua Elu Shofars, and then it's a Mikra Kodesh. What does Mikra Kodesh mean? Kacheyu B'Asiyas Malach. You should what? You should make it holy through doing Malach. Omar said, why do you dash in the word? Even though I agree, so in other words, you have from the base of this passage, you learn out of Malchus Zichron Shofars. So my question to you is, why do you have to take the word Shabbosim and turn it around and say Shabbosim means Kedusha D'Yom? Normally Shabbosim means rest, don't do work. I would say the same idea as you, but learn differently. Shabbosim means Kachei Basim Lacha, don't do any work, rest. Zichrein Elu, Zichrein, it means remember. Trua Elu Shefers. Mikra Kodesh is Kedushas Hayom. So that's Kedushas Hayom. So now the question is, where do Malchus come in? So all we have is Kedushas Hayom. How do you know you have to do Malchus at all? How do you know Malchus comes in? So it comes along the Brayso. Tanya Rebbe says. It says in the pasuk. It says when you right after Shavuos, they have to harvest and everything else, and right after that pasuk where it says Ani Hashem Elekechem, immediately following that it talks about Shavuos. What does Ani Hashem Elekechem mean? I am your Melech. Then it says, zu malchus. Because it says one pasuk in Hashem Lekechem, and then afterwards it talks about Rosh Hashana, so therefore we'll say that it's talking about what do you call it? So that's how we know. No, the first pasuk is and the next pasuk is that the first day, the first 7th month, it should be Shabbos. So we say Ani Hashem Lekechem means you should have malchus as well. So you don't need that. It says in pasuk. It says elsewhere, you should remember. It says you should remember for the Eibishter. And then it says Ani Hashem Lekechem. What if they say Ani Hashem Lekechem? Where he said, remember the Eibishter. We all know who the Eibishter is. Why does the pasuk have to say the Lekechem? To tell you, whenever it says the word zikaron, remember the Ani Hashem Lekechem as well, which means I am your melech. Is Yemalchias Iman. So that's how we know, because we have over here Kedushas Hayom. You have to, if you have Zechrenis, so because we have Zechrenis by Rosh Hashana, automatically it means you also have to remember that David is a melech. But where do you say it? Where do we put it in? When we talk about the Kedusha of the day, that's when we put in, which is like Rabbi Akiva. Tanya, Rebbe says, Imam Malchias, Oimeres. So Rebbe says that you say it with Malchias. What do we always find? Belevius and the fourth bracha is Avkam Belevius. Over here also, but when do we say a normal Shabbos, a normal Yom Tov? When do we say the part about Kedushas Hayom? Well, right after we say the normal Knesset 7 brachas, so it's the fourth one. So also it should be the fourth one. So the fourth one is when we say Malchis Kedushas Hayom. Ashbag says, when do you say Kedushas Hayom? So Rebbe says you say together with Malchus in the fourth bracha. Like Rabbi Kiva. Ashbag says no. You know we say Malchus in the 5th bracha. Just like on Yom Tov, it's the middle bracha. You have 3 before preamble, 3 post, and then you have 1 in the middle. So here, because there are 3 in the middle, you have 3 before, 3 after. There's 9 brachas in total. It should be the middle one of the 3, which is the middle one, the 5th. Rab Shimon you say it with the middle one, the fifth bracha, the chrenis. Why? Just like everywhere else, we find it dafka in the middle. And normal Yom Tov, you only have 7 brachas. So it's the fourth one that you mentioned, Kedusha Zayim. Afkan Bem Zir also should be in the middle. Ukeshikichu Bezin is Hashana Ba'usha. 1 year when the Bezdin, and we learned before that the Sanhedrin moved about 10 places. When the Bezdin came to Usha, Yorad Rabbi Yechon Mebreka Lifnei Rashbag. Rabbi Yechon Mebreka went down before Rashbag, and Rashi already says why is the expression Yorad? Because the Amud always used to be in the lowest part of the shul. And which called me Makim Krasich Hashem. So he went down to the Amid, and Rashbag was there with the robe. And the Osak Rabbi Yechon Ben, and he followed Rabbi Yechon Ben that he did Kedushas Hayom that he did Malchus in the third bracha. He didn't mix Malchus with Hayom. He brought Malchus into the third bracha, not with Kedushas Hayom. That's not how we did it in Yavin. We didn't tell them how they did. The Yom HaSheni the following day, right? Nothing more things the second day of Shana. Yorad Rabbi Chanina b'noi Rabbi Yosef Ragluli. Then another chazan came to the Amid Rabbi Chanina, the son of Ragluli, but also Rabbi Akiva, and he followed Rabbi Akiva that Malchus was in Kedushas Hayom in the fourth bracha. Omar Rashbag, kacha yinoigin biyavda. That's what we did in Yavin. But the problem is, he did it Malchus with Kedushas Hayom in the fourth bracha, but Rashbag himself just said that Kedushas Hayom is actually the fifth bracha. So what he did, what Chanina did, was not like it did in Yavna, according to Rashbag. So what do you mean he did like Yavna? The memra that Rav Shimon Gamliel Rabbi Akiva, they hold like Rabbi Akiva that Malchus is said in the fourth bracha. Well, Amar Rabbi Akiva Malchus Dushayim. Rabbi Akiva said that Malchus goes together with Dushayim, and Rashbag says it goes in the middle bracha. Amaluhu, but Rashbag, and he said, and Rashbag says Kedushayim imazachrein. Rashbag holds that Kedushayim is actually said in the fifth bracha. Amalu, that's what he said. Amar Abzeda Loim. What he meant was not he was saying that the entire Shananessa you did it right the way we did in Yavna. He just meant where Malchus was said. He was focusing on that. So he said and the first day they did like Rabbi Yechon Ben Noidi, and he wasn't happy because that's not in the Yavna where they took Malchus, brought it forward to the third bracha. But over here, what Abchanin did was he took Malchus and put it back in the fourth bracha in the fourth bracha. He was happy with that. But regarding the Zayim part of it, he wasn't discussing, because according to Shimon Gamliel, that should have been pushed off to the fifth bracha. Says the Gemara, says you said before the second day that went down. My sheni, what is second day? The second day of Hashanah, the memra of Rubel. It means that in their lifetime, in the time of life tonight, they made El 30 days, and therefore Hashanah had 2 days. But we learned Muhammad Abchadid Bakana, Ezra from the times of Ezra. The Eilich and onwards, we don't find El ever 30 days. Now, we already learned before the Gemara last week, there were 3 different Amoraim, Uller and Nachman, that each one of them, El was 30 days, and each one made a mistake, and they were told what to do. So they have to fast on another day in Kippur, but in Rava, but we're not talking about the times of Amoraim, right? I think we're talking about the times of Tanoim. It never happened that they had to make it 30 days. So therefore, what do you mean the second day? He must say, you're right. It means the second day means the next Rosh Hashana. And they refer to it as Yom Sheni, but there's only 1 day of Rosh Hashana, but it meant next the following year. Okay, Mishnah, now how many psukim do we say? We don't say less than 10 psukim. When it talks that describing Malchus, we'll soon see we have a set of 3 psukim for Torah, 3 for Nevi'im, 3 for Ksubim, then we add 1 more for the Torah, come back. And we don't make 10 less than 10 Malchus, Masada Zechrein, 10 for Zechreinis, and Masada Shefer, the Psukim are Shefers. Rabbi Yechon Ben Noidi says, Im Omar Gimel Mekul Yotzer, but you have a minimum of 3. That's 3 Psukim, you are Yotzim. We'll discuss that soon. And the Halach Rabbi Yechon Ben Noidi says the Gemara, Hani Azar Malchus, why have 10 Psukim, so many? Omar Rebbe Kineg Dasodi Hilulim Shomar David B'Sefer Hilum. 10 Halukas David says in Tehillim. Says the Gemara, Hilum Tuva have a lot more than just 10. So we answer Hani Derksibu, all those where it says by the in the capital it says Halu B'Seker Shefer Halu B'Nei B'Chinun. It says 10 times Haluka in that particular Haluka, and that's why we blow 10 Shefers. 10 times we blow. We say 10 Psukim, and David mentions the word Shefer. David said, you know why? It corresponds to the 10 Dibris, but also there was a Shefer by the Har Sinai. Rabbi Yechon says, "Kineged Asara Mamoras," the 10 sayings that David used to create the world. Haininu, what do you get 10? If you count, there's only 9 times as Vayeme. The Bereshis test Habla. So Vayeme by Bereshis, you only find 9. When it answers Bereshit Nami Maimu, when it says the pasuk Bereshit Bodol Lakim, in the beginning Hashem created the world, that's also the Abish is saying in the beginning I want the world to come about. So Bereshit is also one of the Mamoris, and the difference is 10, even though it doesn't say the word Vayem there. How did Abish make the world for speaking? So obviously there were words involved there as well. He said 33. What do you mean it says 33? Does he mean shalosh min ha'todah, shalosh min ha'vim, shalosh min ha'ksuvim, habitation? Is he saying, you say it should be 10 psukim? I'm saying 3, 3, 3. There should be a total of 9. So the whole machlekes is really only about regarding one pasuk. They're only arguing about one pasuk. Echad min ha'todah, echad min ha'vim, echad, or he means the total aggregate should be 3. The havla only one for the Torah, one for the Vim Ksuvim, Havan Le Shalosh. There's 3. So then be a big difference. Toshma coming in. The Tanya we learned in Poichsin we don't make less than Asora Malchis, Asora Zichreines, Asora Shefis. It says in the Braise we don't use less than 10 psukim for each one. But V'im Oma Sheva Mikul and Yotza. If you did a total of 7, you are Yotze Kenege Shiva Rakim. And what's the idea of 7? What's so special about 7? 7 represents the seven heavens, the 7 levels of heaven. Says, you shouldn't make less than 7. Now, what does it mean? If it means 7 of each one, that's 21 psukim. That's a lot more than the Tanakama. Tanakama holds you need a total of 10, and he's saying you need a total of 21. So obviously he means a total of 7. And then he continues. The 3, you are Yaitza. So clearly what he meant 3 was not 3, 3, 3, but he meant a total of 3. Because when he said 7, he definitely meant a total of 7. It didn't mean 7 of Taita, 7 of Vim. That means a total of 21 psukim. That's double of what the Tanakama says. And from the Mishnah, it sounds like he's being makel, he's being lenient. So the Gemara says, and what's the idea of 3? The minimum of 3 is representing the Torah and Vim. They want pasuk of each. Not talking about the Torah, but talking about the Eden. And the 3 segments of the population can be what should be 10, but the average is 3, you are Yaitse. Then we continue. Ein maskidin, even though we have to remember all these things, you have to remember the Eibishter. You do not mention any psukim shel puranius. You should not mention any psukim that has to do with punishments. Maschel b'toida, you start with a toida, umashli b'navi. According to this opinion, you start with a toida, ksubim the navi. Rabbi Yosi says, im heshlim b'toida yotz. If you finish with a toida yotz, in fact, you should be better finish with a toida. And therefore, we have 3 of the Torah, 3 of the what do you call it? The Ksuvim, 3 of the Navi, and then you have 1 pasuk of the Torah again. Tais really wants to know, since Nevi'im is more chashav than Ksuvim, because we always say Tanakh, why do we say Ksuvim before Nevi'im? They said chronologically, a lot of the Ksuvim were written before the Nevi'im were written. David Melech wrote the Tehillim, and Mishlei was written by Shlomo Melech. So therefore, and Kehelah, so therefore, even though Ksuvim chronologically comes first, that's why we say it first. Something more further. Malchi, so what kind of psukim do we say regarding Malchi? Is keep going. For example, Chayani nu Hashem Elokim. As the Eibishter alive says, the Eibishter im lo be'achazok. If not, with what are examples that you said don't mention any psukim that deal with Puranius? Give me an example of a pasuk where it says, let's say Malchis of Puranius, and you don't want us to say it. For example, the Eibishter says, "Chayani nu Hashem," he said, "The Eibishter im lo b'yad chazok to b'zrei to you u'bechema shfucha emlech lecha." With anger, I will rule over you, and we don't want that. That's a bad pasuk. Even though Nachman says, I'm happy if the Eibishter wants to be angry with us, as long as he's ruling over us. Let the Eibishter be angry with us. And take us out of this golus and let it be our king. Okay, he does out of anger, but we're not in golus, and the Eibishter take care of us. Nevertheless, even the Berischa Amur, since the Eibishter said it out of anger, it's not a time, it's not appropriate on Rosh Hashana to remind the Eibishter of his anger. Okay, and the next thing is he said as well, Zikorin, what would be an example of a pasuk remind the Eibishter that he is Puranius, Could go, for example, by Yiska the Abish to remember that Ki Basar Hema, the Sachakal, all they are is flesh and blood. And he's remembering how the Edom were bad in the midbar, and they're only human. So again, doesn't bring out our best side. So why bring it up? Shayfer, we really have an example of Shayfer. You're going, for example, Tiku Shayfer Bagiva, and the blow Shayfer Giva, talking about the Amoin that people are coming to attack Benjamin, and again, the Shayfer here is not used in a good way against the if you want to say psukim of Peronius, but not against the Eden, but against our Sainim, that you can. For example, you can say the pasuk. What's an example of Malchus with Abish is angry against our oppressors? Hashem Molech Yigizu Amim, that the Abish is our king, and let the world tremble, or be scared. Okay, going Hashem Molech Melech Olam of the Goyim outside. The Eibishter will destroy the Goyim from their land, or expel the Goyim from their land. Again, this is against our enemies. And Zikaron keep going Zechar Hashem Livnei Edom, Shem Yerushalayim. Remember what happened then. So these are all the chreinis of Peronis against our enemies. That's all right. Shayfer, what do you find by Shayfer? Keep going, for example, Hashem Lakim by Shayfer, you could blow the Shayfer. The whole of Besaras Taman. And with strong winds, he will go to the south. So therefore, we'll push them away. Hashem Tzvakas Yoganalay, the Eibishter will protect them. So we here are examples of thing of Peronius, which if you want to say, you can say. While you're saying Zechaynis, you can't throw in Eibishter, remember me, remember this. You cannot talk about individuals. We talk about in Yonim of Klal. Even using psukim which are zikaron, which are good. You cannot say, for example, remember me together with and be favored for your people. Can't do that. Or for example, say the pasuk Zachrali Elokay, remember me in a good way. We do not talk about in Zechrenis all the psukim about Klal Yisrael, not about individual. Now it says is that Pikdonis. Then it's also the way the Abish is remembering how to hink his Zechrenis. We find a number of psukim. For example, we read on Rosh Hashana again. Hashem pocket the Tzara. The Abish remembered Tzara. He can pocket Pakad the Eschen. The Abish remembered us. So pocket or Zekaron, pocket psukim about pocket is just as good as Zekaron. It's really the same thing. That's what Rabbi Yehuda says. Rabbi Yehuda says no. Einan kezechrenis. It's not exactly the same thing as a Zekaron. And therefore, when it says Zechrenis, we don't throw in Pakad there at all. I guess one of the differences in Pekod and Zekaron is Pekod and Abish did something about it. Pekod, he acted on it straight away. Abish remembered Tzara and took care of it straight away. And Zekaron is more the idea, just remembering. And then we have to talk other psukim about doing things. Well, Rabbi Yossi, let us a question. Even according to Rabbi Yossi, he said you could use psukim of Pikdonis because it's similar to Zechrenis, and he talks about Hashem Poker Asada, but isn't that individual? Because the Yachur, we just said we don't do any Zechrenis or anything that's about individuals, be about Klal Yisrael. So we answer, even though Rabbi Mino, out of Yitzchak came out Klal Yisrael, it's Kirabim Damir, just like a Rabbi. It says in Pasuk, Su'u Sha'arim Rosheich, and I'm talking about Malch, it says in Pasuk, Su'u Sha'arim Rosheich, Yinosu Pischei Oila, V'yogoi Melech HaKavod. So it has the word Melech there. Mize Melech HaKavod, again has the word Melech. Hashem Izel Gibah, Hashem Gibah Melchama. Then says Su'u Sha'arim Rosheich, Musu Pischei Oila, V'yogoi Melech HaKavod. Again says Melech. So in the first part it says twice Melech, and this part here it says Melech HaKavod. Miyuzel HaKavod, it says the second time. So in the first part it says twice Melech, and the second part it says three times the word Melech. The first time is two, and the second one is three. Rabbi Yehuda says no. The Rishayna is achas, and shniya is shtayim. Then when it says miza, it's asking a question. That's not a Melech, because it's not saying this is the Melech. You're asking if that's a Melech, so you can't count that as a Melech. So therefore, in the first one you only have one Melech. And the second one you have two, and the part that says Mizrach HaKavod is not counted as a melech. Okay, in the next pasuk it says Zamrul Kim Zameiru Zamrul Malkeinu Zameiru. So ki melech kol elakim shtay dir Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says that here you have two. Rabbi Yehuda says it says and Rabbi Yehuda says achas. You only have one. You only have one. Rabbi Yehuda does not count Zamru Lakim Zameru Zalmakei Zameru Kimalakala. He does not count the Malkeinu. Why doesn't he count Malkeinu? Because Malkeinu, when we talk about Melech, we say Melech ala Olam Kula B'Chodecha. We're talking about on Rosh Hashana. We want Hashem to reign, to be the king and the monarch. We're not talking about just about Klal Yisrael. We're talking about to be over the entire world. So the first part of the pasuk says Zamru Lakim Zameru Zamru Malkeinu Zameru. We're talking about our king of Bnei Yisrael, and then it says Kimalakala Aretz Elakim, the king of the whole entire world. So Rabbi says. There's two times says Melech. Abiyah says no. It says only once Melech because the Melech. When we're not talking about just Melech Amalkeinu, we're talking about Melech Kol Ha'olam Kulei, and therefore we only have one. B'Shavim, but they all agree on the following pasuk where it says B'Melech Elkim Al Goyim Elkim Yoshev Al Kisekotra She'achas. Over there it says Melech Elkim only once. Everyone agrees it's only one. It's only one because it talks about the Abish, the king over the whole world. The Kodesh is by Trua. If you're going, what says the Kodesh that has in it Trua? What about the Kodesh has in it Trua? For example, it says in the pasuk Shabbos and Zichron Trua Mikra Kodesh. Where does that fit in? It says Zichron Trua. Zichron Trua fall under Zichronis because it says Zichron, or does it fall under Shefer because it says Trua? Where does it fall in? So he says here, he said both. You can use the same pasuk for both. Why? Rabbi Yehuda says because it says zichron and trua. Rabbi Yehuda says no. You can only use it with the kind. You can't use the shofars. Why? Because the word used there is trua, not the word shofars. You have to have the word shofar as well. Malchus what about another pasuk? It has the word malchus, it has the word trua. If you go, for example, Shem Elakav Ima Yitruas Melech Boy. He's saying over here, so this is what Lavan said, Bilam said, that Hashem Elokov Imay Utruas Melech Boy. You have the word Melech, Malchus, and you have the word Trua. So where does it go? So a meres, according to Rabbi Yossi, it goes with Malchus, and a meres Ima Shefres. Rabbi Yehuda says the same thing again. Even though it says Trua, Trua is not Shefer, so you can only use it in Zikaron. Sorry, only Melech. It says Melech Boy, you can count it as a Melech, but you cannot count it in Shefers, because it doesn't say the word Shefer. Here's a third one. It says Yem Trua Yilachem. Again, it does not mention Shefer, but it says Yem Trua. It says Rabbi Yossi, that's Shefer. Rabbi Yehuda says, you don't, it's not counted at all because it doesn't have the word Shefer. So we have three machlekes and they're really exactly the same argument, whether the word Trua constitutes Shefer or you need Trua Shefer to be more explicit. Even though we learn that Yem Trua Yilachem, it means through Shefers, but it's not Mefurish. Rabbi Yossi says that since you learn Gzei Shabbat, it's as if it's written clearly, it's as if it's Mefurish Shefer. And Rabbi Yehuda says no. The fact is, it doesn't say Shefer. When it comes to davening, at least, it's not good enough. We need the word Shefer as well. Maschel b'Torah, mashlim b'Navi. You conclude the psukim with a pasuk from the Navi. Rabbi Yossi says, Im yishim b'Torah, Rabbi Yossi says, if you finish with the Torah, Yetzer. Sounds like, but the Eved, if you finish with a possible Torah, is good enough. It's better to finish off with Torah. And therefore you have 4 from the Torah, 3 from the Nevi'im, 3 from the Ksubim. So the Gemara says, Ema mashlim. It means you should, don't read it as Mishnah as if it says, if you finish, read it as if it says you should finish. What do you mean read as if it says you should finish? Right? The clear Mishnah, if you finish, the this is what he meant. Maschil b'Torah, umashlim b'Navi. According to Tanakama, you finish with Navi. The Reza says mashlim b'Torah. You're supposed to finish off with Torah. But I'll agree with Tanakama if you finish with a Navi Yotze. But definitely you should finish with a Torah. Time we learned. Was seeking the frum ones, the diligent ones, they used to make sure that they finish Malchus and Shayfa. They always, the last pasuk was always a pasuk for Torah. Shema Yisrael, but a pasuk for Torah. If you look at the Torah, there are many psukim where it says the word zikaron. There are many psukim you find the word Shayfa, so it's not an issue. We don't have too many psukim with the word Malchus in it. They only have 3 psukim. Hashem Elokov Imai v'Turas Melech Boy. We just brought from Bilam that he said that pasuk. That's one. Vahi B'Shur Melech is another pasuk with Eibush is our Melech, and the third one Hashem Yimach Le'Levad. And that's it. We don't have any other psukim. So in Azasha, we need more a total of 10. We need one more pasuk. Toshma Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad Malchus. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Echad Malchus Divrei Rabbi Yosi. That's words Rabbi Yosi, which is what we say. So that's how we, because when we say Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, obviously what we're doing is we're accepting Kabbalah's Malchus Shema. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Ain't a Malchus." Rabbi Yehuda says, "No, I don't consider that Malchus, but rather, what do I consider Malchus? The Yadaita Hayim Hashem V'Yisrael Lecha Ki Hashem Elokim." Sorry, Rabbi Yehuda says that's not Malchus. It doesn't say Melech clearly. It's not Malchus. Again, Rabbi Yehuda seems to be learning all the time. In order to be Yitzhak, the Malchus Shayfer, it has to be Mefurish in the pasuk. Trua is not Mefurish Shayfer, no good. Here also, Hashem Echad, not good enough. So Rabbi Yossi brings another pasuk. The Yadaita Hayim Hashem V'Yisrael Lecha Ki Hashem Elokim. Einai, there's nobody else. And what is it? Hebrew King. David Rabbi Yossi says, no, ain't a Malchus. It has to be clear. We can't have just, you have to make, a draw leap. Make a leap. You have to see clearly what Malchus. After Hashem Elokim ain't involved in Malchus. David Rabbi Yossi, again, Hashem Elokim is Rabbi Yudai and Malchus. Again, you have 3 times the same machlekes, same theme. Just like by True, we have 3 from machlekes and saying the same thing, that True is not good enough according to Rabbi Yehuda, has to be footage. Again, you have 3 psukim here, but each pasuk adds one. Yishma Yisrael is Hashem Echad. Rabbi Yehuda is not happy. The next one is Hashem Elokim Einoid, and Rabbi Yehuda is not happy. And then we go further, Einoid Milvadoi, more than just Einoid, Milvadoi, and Rabbi Yehuda still is not happy to say that is Malchus. Obviously, we follow Rabbi Yossi, and we say Shema Yisrael. And so, according to Rabbi Yehuda Taka, where does he get that other pasuk? What does he do by getting a 4th pasuk? Mishnah, however, lifnei ateva, the one who goes to the Amid, the Yom Tov Rosh Hashana, the one who goes to Amid on Yom Tov Rosh Hashana, Hasheni, the one who davas Musa, Matkiya is the one who enables the blowing of the shofar. It doesn't say Takeya, it says Matkiya, because we don't want the Chazan, it says the Chazan to be the Baal Takeya. Today with Shidurim is a little bit different, but then we didn't want the Chazan, he could be Mavulbul, he get mixed up where he's up to be the Baal Takeya. And from here is also the meaning that we don't have the same Chazan for Shachris and for Musaf. It says Hasheni, the second one. When it comes to Halal, the first one does the Halal. Says the Gemara, why do we wait for Musaf before we blow Shofar? Because Hadras Melech. And interesting, the Gemara acknowledges that most people come late to Shul. Because if everybody would come on time, then what's the difference Musaf or Shachris? The same amount of people. So interesting, the Gemara acknowledges that even in those days, if the minyan started at 9:30, the majority of people would come at 10, 10:15, 10:30. They would waltz inside. So, but Rav Am, if you want to follow the Rav Am Hadas Melech, have more people do a mitzvah, you'll have it by Musaf. No, says what you hal nami name of b'sheni. So hal also b'sheni Musaf. Why hal is b'shachis? Mishum Rav Am Hadas Melech elamaish no hal liberation. What's the reason why we bring forward hal to shachis? Because these are magdil mitzvahs. That means even after Shmones of shachis, we don't expect people there yet. People come even after that. Is Tkiyah Nami, Navid Berisha. So for the same token, we should make Tkiyah early, because these Magdim Mitzvahs. In other words, it seems the Gemara is saying they didn't have Tkiyahs the Miyushav like we have right after Tkiyah Torah. Tkiyahs were by Musaf when they did the brachas. How come? Talking about this a decree of the king. What happened was the king decreed and said, I'll blow shofar anymore. They thought they were starting a revolt, mounting a revolt. So they pushed off to Musaf, by then the guards have left. So once they already did it, Davish Minyan, you leave it by Musaf as well. And Tosfos brings what actually happened was that the king thought they mounted a revolt, and they went and they killed a number of Yidach. So Chacham said, you know what? Let's make the Tkiyas Dafke by Musaf. And by making the Tkiyas Dafke by Musaf, we will, the Goy will see that it's all part of the ritual. That we say together with brachas, it's not mounting a revolution, it's part of our davening. The Baal Amor and other Shainim ask, what do you mean? What's it mean they say? Sorry, some of the Shainim say, from here's a raya, that the 9 brachas we say is by Shachris as well, not just by Musaf. Because if it's only by Musaf, what's the most question why I said by Musaf? Since you're supposed to blow shofar with Malchus and shofar, so that's why it goes by Musaf. What's the whole Gemara's discussion here? It seems to me that they said the same Some of the Shem hold that just like we have 9 brachas by Musaf, we had 9 brachas by Shachris. In fact, the Balmoy brings that by Maidiv, Shachris, and Musaf, you have to have 9 brachas. At his Rai is from right here. Otherwise, what's the Gemara's question why Musaf is bringing forward? But we need to say about Musaf, Malchus and Shefus. Is the Raya that there, since they said 9 brachas all by Shachris, the Gemara's question is, so why the late Musaf do by Shachris? And we said because of the Gzeda. The Ramban says back and others, no. But that itself is the Gemara's question. Since these are Magdalene mitzvahs, let's swap around and let's make the Shachris 9 brachas and Musaf should be only 7. Like every Shabbos Musaf is only 7. Wherever Yom Tov is only 7. In other words, we don't daven 9 brachas Musaf, but that's by Shachris. But that's Gemara's question. Let us plan it so that the Shachris should have 9 brachas and blow the shofar, then Malchus and shofar. And Musaf is much shorter. and the Gemara says because of the Gzeda that happened then. We have time tomorrow. I'll tell you. I'll just tell you tomorrow. The Machlek, the Ravid, and the Baal Moed. Fascinating. So let's continue. Talking about it further. So because of the Gzeda, B'damish has halal McLeod. The Shana leka halal. The Shana you don't say halal my time, but why not? Why tackle say halal Shana and keep Yom Tov? Oh, maybe she said to them. Let me ask you. The Abish is sitting and judging. The Sifrei Chayim, the Sifrei Meisim, Psuchim Lefanov, the book of life and the book of death are sitting in front of him. The Yisrael and Shida, this is the right time to sing songs. They're standing there in trepidation, they're all nervous and worried of how is the Abish going to judge us? And we are going to sing songs as if everything is rosy and dandy. It sound hollow. It doesn't sound right. It's totally inappropriate. So the big machlek is whether does that mean that we don't treat Rosh Hashanah like Rosh Chodesh? For example, we say it's a Kascha or not, machlek Rosh Hashanah or not. Says the Gemara, we also had the Gemara before, machlek if you mention Rosh Chodesh at all on Rosh Hashanah. Next mission, Sheifa Rosh Hashanah, even though it's a mitzvah Torah, a mavidin all of us at Chum. You don't do any avedis in order to be able to blow Sheifa. You're not allowed to walk beyond the Chum, which is the Rabbanon. They mefakhin also going out to open up a gala. There's like something collapse. You're not allowed to move it to get to the Sheifa. Most of Shem hold is only Nisa the Rabbanon and not even Nisa the Rice. Like Oilim Bill, no, can you climb a tree which is only Nisa the Rabbanon? Because you might pluck the tree, full break branch. Like God, maybe you shouldn't ride an animal again. It's only with the Rabbanon you might break a branch. You don't swim in the water, you might make a raft. And nor do you cut the shofar out. Whether it's only an Isa the Rabbanon or whether it's an Aloisas. You're not allowed to do any of these things on Shabbos and on Rosh Hashanah. You want to fill it with wine or water, which somehow or another makes it to sound a bit clear or crystal clear. That you can do. Number 2, you don't stop the kids from blowing shofar. Once you blew the shofar on Rosh Hashanah, you're not on your Shabbos. Rosh Hashanah, it's muktzah. You don't need it anymore. But if kids want to learn, you don't stop them. In fact, I will ask them, or not only you don't stop them, you should be involved with them and teach them. It's an inyan to teach your kids how to blow shofar. But if you are being misasik and with the kid and you have no kavanah, you are not yetzer. If mitzvahs don't need kavanah and you're blowing shofar the kid, why aren't you yetzer kids? So over here we say misasik means either you're just playing around, you're not doing exact notes and just happen to be, or some of the shaynas say because you are not having kavanah is neutral. Here, you're dafka having a kavanah to fulfill the mitzvah of chinuch, not to fulfill the mitzvah of shofar. So it's a contradictory kavanah. And if you have a contradictory kavanah, even those who hold the mitzvah don't need kavanah, it cancels out the kavanah. That's what the Ran says. If somebody hears you blowing the shofar while you're teaching your kid, you're not yetzer. So my time is shofar asay. The mitzvah of shofar is mitzvah asay. But the Yom Tov is an asay and a loisas. And Yom Tov you have a mitzvah asay of resting and a loisas. The ain asay doiche as loisas of asay. And asay cannot push away a double thing. And asay and a loisas. Even though we had the Gemara Shabbos did a gimel chavdal, a big machlekes. In fact, only Ravashi said it's an asay and a loisas. Most other Amoraim that don't believe it, they only say it's a loisas. And this Gemara here seems to follow the halacha that it's an asay and a loisas. And how they deal with it before the book matter. You're not allowed to. Mishnah says even a loisasa. The Rishonim would try to work out which of these malachas is a loisasa. Which one exactly is it that from a deraisa? But anyhow, mother the Rabban, and you say no, deraisa and the boya. So you have to tell me that you're not allowed to be over the Rabban to get to a shayf. You'll be over my Torah. I'm telling you that the Rabbanan, you shouldn't do anything, and surely you shouldn't do anything Mahatayda in order to retrieve a Sefer. Okay, that finishes today's Gemara. We'll continue tomorrow in Mitzvah Hashem. Okay, everyone have a good day.